Welcome, my soft-thinking listener. You are now in the company of the sleepy sloth. I am a slow, scientifically minded fellow who enjoys facts, pigments, and things that barely change at all. I must tell you something before we begin. Today, I consider myself a scientist in color. A scientist who is almost always correct, except for those few times when I am not. But even then, I prefer to drift gently onward, rather than fuss over it. Because what truly matters is the information itself. Before I start, please let me know, what is the most boring thing you would secretly love hearing about? Let me know gently in the comments. Now, let us begin today's episode of Colors and Pigments That No One Cares About. Green earth, also known in ancient whispers as terre verte, is the color of soft shadows beneath olive trees on a silent hillside where no one has walked for a very long time. This pigment is made from celadonite and glauconite, two minerals that occur naturally, waiting patiently in stone for artists who may never arrive. Green earth is not a green that boasts. It is a green that listens. In medieval portraits, it lived quietly beneath layers of flesh tones. Always in service, never in the spotlight. A supporting actor in the grand performance of paint. It was the undertone, the secret scaffold, the whisper behind the canvas breath. This pigment was favored for underpainting skin because of its muted hue. It neutralized warmth and prepared the surface, like moss preparing stone for roots. It was never meant to be noticed. And that is its strength. Let us drift softly onward. Florentine green is a green that isn't quite green. It is a smoky sage, tinged with candlelight gold. Found in the frescoed walls of Renaissance chapels, it is a color that has never hurried in its life. It doesn't resemble a plant so much as the memory of one, seen in the fading light of a Tuscan dusk. If green earth is the servant, Florentine green is the poet, still humble, but with a knowing softness. When applied in murals, it settles like sighs in the background. Not leafy, not fresh, just gentle. The kind of green you might find in a dusty book left open in a monastery. A holy green. A patient green. A green with dust in its creases. Let us wander onward. Rutile is the name of red earth when it wants to be slightly more important. Found in rural hillsides and quiet fields, this red clay was once used to paint cave walls and shepherds' cheeks. A dry, dusty pigment that sits somewhere between ochre and rust, rutile is not flashy. It does not gleam. It does not crave attention. It remembers. A red born of soil, of iron, of steady erosion. It was used in body paint by ancient peoples, to mark rituals, or sometimes just time. This pigment has seen the slow passage of centuries, and still, it lingers, clinging to the edges of old tools and stones. It is the red that sighs, not sings. A red that murmurs like footsteps in dried leaves. Let us continue our sleepy stroll. Alizarin violet is not as famous as its crimson sibling, but it doesn't mind. It's the echo, not the voice. Synthetic in origin, yet warm in soul, it leans into the violet family with a faded, pressed flower dignity. This pigment is found in glazes, in shadows, in places where color whispers instead of declares. Think of violets between notebook pages. Dried and flattened, but still fragrant with memory. That's where alizarin violet lives. It fades with time, but gracefully. Like old letters. Like memories softened by time. Never fighting the dark. Only keeping it company. Let us slide now into another shade. Cobalt chromite blue is not the blue of skies or oceans. It is the blue of permanence. A deep, dignified blue made from cobalt and chromium. It was designed for ceramics and artist paints that must last. It resists fading. It does not shimmer. It simply endures. This blue leans slightly toward indigo but never tips over. It is a scholar's blue. One you might find tucked in the margins of illuminated manuscripts or the glaze of a forgotten vase. It's not a playful blue. It's not even a joyful one. It is a steady blue. A blue that keeps secrets. A blue that listens more than it speaks. Let us float forward, into the golden hum of. Lead tin yellow is the yellow of halos. And of holy robes in the corners of gilded paintings. Used in the 15th and 16th centuries, it offered a dense, glowing yellow that was both opaque and radiant. Made from a fusion of lead and tin, it glows not like the sun, but like candlelight behind stained glass. This yellow was sacred. It was used sparingly, but reverently, in depictions of angels and saints. A holy powder, quiet but intense. It is no longer commonly used, because of its toxicity. But its glow remains in paintings from centuries ago. A kind of light that can't be dimmed by time. A divine whisper in powdered form. Let us slip onward. Toward berries and manuscripts. Steel de grain yellow is the color of buckthorn berries, unripe and waiting. Made by slowly boiling these berries into a fugitive pigment, it ranges from acidic green yellow to golden bronze. It's delicate, impermanent, and often forgotten. This yellow was used in illuminated manuscripts, its fleeting brilliance captured only for a moment before it faded into memory. It is a soft color, like autumn sunlight on old vellum. A yellow that's always about to leave. It doesn't stay long. And that is what makes it so quietly beautiful. Let us drift slowly onward. Into shadow and shimmer. Iridescent graphite is the contradiction you didn't ask for, but here it is. A black with shimmer. A shimmer with shadow. Made with mica, it flickers between pewter and pearl. It is not a color, but a reflection of one. Used in pens, paints, and poetry written in moonlight, iridescent graphite is for those who want shimmer without celebration. It shifts in silence. A fish-scale flicker. The kind of pigment that changes slightly when you're not looking. The shimmer that says nothing loudly. Let us now blush gently. Cassis pink is the pink you didn't think was real. A pigment made from gold dissolved in tin, delicate, expensive, and almost unnecessary. But it exists. Found in antique stained glass, it's a blush that barely breathes. It's the pink of embarrassment. In glass. The pink of something rare and unsure. It is often referred to in scientific tones, but the truth is, Cassis pink feels more like magic than chemistry. A pink with no business being here. And yet, here it is. Let us move now. Into decay and beauty. Verdigris dust is copper's final breath. When copper corrodes in sea air or damp stone, it turns a brilliant turquoise, verdigris. And when that verdigris is collected, powdered, and used, it becomes dust. A pigment that was once prized by medieval illuminators, though it eats paper and fades like a dream. Verdigris dust is unstable, ephemeral, and softly cruel. But for the brief time it lives, it is seafoam magic. The green that existed, and then did not. A shimmer of memory. A pigment that was never meant to last. But oh, how it did, just long enough. Let us carry onward. Into ashes. Ultramarine ash is what remains after the stone has given up its blue. Made from the leftover sediment after extracting pure ultramarine from lapis lazuli, this pigment is gray-blue. Patient, soft, and humble. It is the echo of glory. A color that exists because brilliance was taken. But even in the residue, there is something beautiful. Ultramarine ash reminds us that not all brilliance is lost in loss. Some simply changes. Becomes quieter. Becomes background. Becomes lullaby. Let us move now. Into lemon light. Let us drift. Ever so slowly. Back into the pigments that no one asked for. And yet. Here we are. Barium chromate is a yellow that hums. But never sings. It is pale, softly glowing, and just a little bit toxic. This pigment was once used in industrial primers and early paint experiments, back when laboratories were more about quiet discovery than safety precautions. It is the yellow of old chemistry sets and forgotten alchemical notebooks. Imagine a lemon, but less cheerful. More contemplative. A laboratory lemon. One that never rolls off the counter because it has nowhere to be. It lingers, like dust in the corners of a chalkboard. A yellow you do not notice unless you are trying to fall asleep. And that is just perfect. Let us continue. Softly. Dusty amaranth is not quite the flower, but the memory of one. A reddish purple, desaturated by time and sun. It is the color of fabric dyes once cherished, now mostly forgotten. Worn by centuries, it lives in the shadows of old tapestries and the faded petals tucked between book pages. It is not bold. It is not bright. It is a sigh, in color form. Used in ancient cloth. In robes now left in museums behind glass that whispers silence. Dusty amaranth is the pigment of the past. Still present, but softly so. Let us exhale slowly. And turn to white. Bone ash white is exactly what it sounds like. It is the whiteness of calcined bones, crushed, purified, and powdered into a pigment that is more texture than color. Used in porcelain, in enamels, and in the quiet parts of paintings where nothing needs to happen. It is a powdery hush. A mineral lullaby. It is not the white of snow, or light, but the white of silence. Of stillness. Of things that no longer breathe, but still, somehow remain. Let us drift now. Toward green that dreams. Phthalo emerald is not the green of leaves. But the idea of green, magnified beyond reality. Synthetic, bold, and staining, it is emerald after rain, emerald seen through half-closed eyes. Too intense for some. Irresistible to others. It is the green of jewelry boxes and imagined forests. Used in paints that never fade, it holds onto canvas like moss clings to stone. But it is not nature's green. It is the green of artifice. Of fantasy. Of emerald-turned dream. Let us glide. Into dust. Dust of malachite is powdered grandeur. Once worn by Egyptian queens and painted into Renaissance manuscripts, malachite green is brilliant but fragile. It flakes. It changes. It fades. But for the moment when it lives on paper or skin, it sings of empires. It is the green of peacock feathers, ground into silence. A mineral that once stood for wealth. Now ground into dust, waiting quietly in drawers and archives. It never lasts. But oh, when it does, it tells stories in color. Let us fall gently. Into black. Candle smoke black is made from soot. Not any soot, but the kind collected delicately from the flickering flame of a candle. A true carbon black. Weightless and soft. It has been used for centuries in calligraphy ink, in ancient scriptures, in whispered spells and quiet thoughts. It is the black of endings. And of breath. It floats between ink and air, between writing and forgetting. A pigment of both presence and absence. Let us drift onward. To the warmth of orange red. Minium is not quite red, not quite orange. It is somewhere in between, like a sunrise trapped in powder. Made from lead tetroxide, it once set medieval manuscripts aglow, outlining saints, warming the margins with silent fire. It is also called red lead, but that name misses the point. Minium is not the red of anger or warning, it is the red of radiance. a pigment of devotion and danger, of glowing icons and careful brushstrokes. Toxic, yes. But softly so. Now it rests in museum pages, still bright, still whispering of centuries past. A color caught between light and lead. Smalt is the color of memory pretending to be blue. Made from ground cobalt glass, it sparkles when new but fades softly into gray with time. In the 15th century, painters used it for skies and shadows, knowing, perhaps, that it would one day dissolve into paleness. It's a fragile blue, a temporary blue. A pigment that shimmers like frost and vanishes like breath on cold glass. Some pigments shout their presence. Smalt prefers to fade away gently, leaving behind the ghost of cobalt. It is a color that knows how to leave quietly, and that makes it perfect for sleep. Realgar is danger dressed as beauty. A brilliant orange-red that once lit up alchemists' labs and medieval paintings, it gleams like foxfire in the dark. But it is made of arsenic sulfide, a pigment that kills softly over time. Painters loved it for its glow, but feared it for its bite. Realgar was used for rituals, for experiments, for art that shimmered and faded. Sunlight dims it, air dissolves it. But in its moment of life, it burns brighter than most colors dare. It is the color of secrets whispered in candlelight, of spells written in a hand that trembles. Orpiment is golden light, powdered. It's the yellow of silk curtains at sunset, of ancient manuscripts edged with dangerous beauty. Like realgar, it's an arsenic sulfide, softly toxic, softly glowing. Artists once used it to mimic gold leaf when actual gold was too expensive. Orpiment whispered of wealth but came with a cost, it poisoned those who handled it carelessly. Still, they used it, because sometimes, beauty is worth the risk. It is the color of desire and consequence. A yellow that gleams in paintings, even now, centuries later. The kind of yellow that knows it shouldn't exist, but does anyway. Carmine is not just red, it is velvet red, blood red, life red. Made from crushed cochineal beetles, it once dyed royal robes and sacred pages. It is the color of emperors' cloaks and cardinal hats, of whispered prayers written in crimson ink. Carmine does not fade easily, it holds on, just like memory. It is a red that lingers on fabric, on parchment, on history itself. It hums with richness, with ceremony, with life. And yet, it comes from tiny insects, humble, hidden, sacrificed for beauty. Carmine is both grand and small, loud and soft. The red that remembers everything. Gamboge is yellow, but not loud yellow. It is the color of lacquered sunshine, tapped from trees in Southeast Asia. Painters used it in sacred texts and watercolors, monks used it to dye their robes. Gamboge glows, but quietly. It does not shout like lemon yellow or chrome, it hums at the edges of memory, golden and soft. It stains paper with permanence but feels delicate, like the last light before dusk. The name itself feels like a lullaby, gamboge. A color for whispers, not declarations. For monks in orange robes, sitting still beneath trees, watching the sun set. Slowly. Before carmine, there was kermes red. It is a crimson born from insects, gathered from oak trees, crushed and brewed into dye. In ancient times, it colored the robes of kings and the pages of illuminated texts. Kermes is the red of reverence, of history wrapped in silence. It is softer than carmine, more secretive. A sacred red, used by scribes in candlelit rooms, by weavers crafting royal garments. Today, it has mostly disappeared, replaced by brighter, cheaper reds. But kermes red lingers in old cloth and forgotten books, still glowing quietly. Still here. Still crimson. Even when no one remembers why. Lapis lazuli is not just blue, it is the universe in mineral form. Ground from stone mined in Afghanistan, it was once more valuable than gold. It became ultramarine, the color reserved for Madonnas and heavenly skies. Inside lapis, flecks of pyrite glitter like tiny stars, as if the night sky has been trapped in stone. It is a blue that feels ancient, sacred, patient. The blue of devotion. The blue of waiting. It is not the blue of oceans or the sky you see, it is the blue of the unreachable, the infinite, the whispered. The color of stillness itself. Dragon's blood is a pigment wrapped in myth. It is not the breath of dragons, but a resin, collected from the rattan palm. Its color is deep, rusty red, the shade of ancient rituals and forgotten spells. Used in varnishes, inks, and medicines, it once sealed scrolls and colored ceremonial objects. Dragon's blood is not a bright red, it is a smoldering one. The red of embers, of memory, of something sacred that no longer has a name. It hums softly in the background of history. A color with roots in magic and medicine. Both of which fade, but never vanish. Dragon's blood is a pigment wrapped in myth. It is not the breath of dragons, but a resin, collected from the rattan palm. Its color is deep, rusty red, the shade of ancient rituals and forgotten spells. Used in varnishes, inks, and medicines, it once sealed scrolls and colored ceremonial objects. Dragon's blood is not a bright red, it is a smoldering one. The red of embers, of memory, of something sacred that no longer has a name. It hums softly in the background of history. A color with roots in magic and medicine. Both of which fade, but never vanish. Azurite is the blue of a storm just before it breaks. Mined beside malachite, it is deep and electric, until it isn't. Azurite fades to green or pale gray over time, but in its first moment, it dazzles. It is the blue of frescoes in cool stone churches, of manuscripts painted with skies that have since darkened. Fragile, yes. But that's part of its beauty. Azurite exists in transition, between blue and green, between presence and memory. It crumbles in your hand, but not in your mind. A pigment for those who understand that color, like time, is meant to change. Egyptian blue is the first man-made pigment. It was created around 2500 BCE by ancient chemists who mixed copper, sand, and lime into alchemical magic. The result is a soft, dreamy blue, used to paint tomb walls, statues, and sacred objects. It is the blue of eternity, of things meant to last beyond life. Egyptian blue does not fade easily. It endures, quietly, in temples and ruins, whispering across thousands of years. It is the color of stillness carved into stone, of statues watching silently from history's corners. The first synthetic blue, and perhaps, still, the most timeless. Indigo is twilight made into cloth. Extracted from plants, fermented into dye, and woven into fabric, it is the blue of solemn depth. It is not the sky's blue, it is the sky folding into night. Indigo stains everything it touches, fabric, skin, history itself. It is the color of ancient robes, of sailors' uniforms, of dreams that fade at dawn. Unlike paint, indigo sinks into the fibers, becoming part of them. It is not just color, it is memory. The blue of midnight thoughts, of words written by lantern light. A pigment that does not leave, even when forgotten. Saffron is the world's most expensive spice, and also, softly, a color. Saffron yellow is fleeting, delicate, and fragrant. It dyes silk robes, brightens sacred texts, and colors prayers whispered at sunset. It is not a loud yellow, it is a golden breath, a warmth that lingers in memory. Harvesting saffron is an act of patience, thousands of tiny stigmas plucked by hand. The color is the same, soft, slow, precious. Saffron yellow is the color of devotion, of ritual, of time spent carefully. It glows for a moment, then fades. But somehow, it stays with you, like a whispered blessing. Indian yellow glows like melted gold. Once, it came from an unusual source. Cows fed only mango leaves, their urine collected and dried into pigment. The result was rich, translucent, and luminous, but also cruel. Today, Indian yellow is made synthetically, but the memory of its origins remains, quietly folded into its golden glow. It is a color of sunsets and silk saris, of mangoes ripening on warm evenings. It hums softly in paintings, bright but never brash. Indian yellow reminds us that beauty can carry complicated stories. It shines, even when its past is wrapped in shadow. Coquelicot is the red-orange of wild poppies and summer fields. It is a cheerful color, bright and fleeting. The word itself feels like a sigh, coquelicot. It bloomed in the paintings of the Impressionists and the posters of early 20th century France, capturing the moment when nature and art collided in a burst of color. But coquelicot doesn't last, it fades, like the petals of the poppy. It is a color of brief joy, of afternoons spent in meadows, of memories that slip away softly. A poppy red that reminds you, beauty is temporary. And sometimes, that's the whole point. Turner's yellow is the color of misty sunrises and fog lit from within. JMW Turner used it often, blending it into skies, smudging it into glowing clouds. Brighter than Naples yellow, softer than chrome, it is the yellow of atmosphere. It does not stand alone, it melts into other colors, creating the illusion of light. It is the buttery smear of dawn over gray seas, the warmth of afternoon haze. Turner's yellow is not about the object, it's about the air around it. The color of mood. Of weather. Of a painter trying to capture the space between storms. Chrome green is a 19th century invention. It is crisp, bold, and unapologetically green. Created from chromium oxide, it replaced older, more delicate greens with something sturdier, more industrial. You'll find it in botanical prints, oil-painted hedgerows, and antique wallpapers that still hum quietly with forgotten summers. Chrome green is not the green of soft moss or shadows beneath trees. It is the green of certainty. Of paint that refuses to fade. It stands, firm and cool, between blue and yellow, balanced and serious. A color for stability. For structure. For when you want green. And nothing more complicated. Verdigris is copper's quiet exhale. When copper and air meet, this turquoise-green patina forms naturally, on statues, on rooftops, on ancient coins buried in the earth. Artists once scraped it from bronze to use as pigment, brushing it onto manuscripts and canvases where it sang softly of change. But verdigris is unstable. It corrodes, it shifts, it sometimes eats away at the very paper it touches. Yet it is beautiful, because it is alive. It is the color of transformation, of slow oxidation. Verdigris reminds us that nothing stays the same, and sometimes. That's exactly the point. Naples yellow is buttery calm, smoothed into pigment. Made from lead antimonate, it was once a favorite in Renaissance palettes, a soft, glowing yellow used for painting skin, candlelight, and the breath of sunlight on stone. Naples yellow does not shout, it murmurs. It is the color of afternoon warmth, of old oil paintings, of gentle decay that somehow still feels bright. Today, safer synthetic versions exist, but the hue remains the same, mellow, tender, and slow. It is not gold, nor lemon, it is something in between. The color of the past, wrapped in a warm sigh. Madder lake is the color of roots turned into memory. Made from the madder plant, this pigment blooms into a rich, earthy red when processed, dyeing fabrics, glazing canvases, and whispering softly in historical paintings. It is a red that fades gracefully over time, slipping into soft pinks and muted oranges. Madder lake is not the red of rage or passion, it is the red of silk gowns and candlelight, of old velvet, of stories remembered quietly. It stains, it warms, it lingers. A plant that became a color, and then became nostalgia itself. Sepia is not quite brown, not quite black, it is the color of memory dissolving. Made from cuttlefish ink, sepia was once used by artists for sketches, by writers for letters, and by the world for photographs that wanted to feel older. It is a warm, liquid shadow, the color of fading pages and whispered stories. Sepia is not harsh. It is gentle, like twilight. Like the soft edge of a dream. Today, we filter our photos to look like sepia, because somewhere inside, we still want things to feel like the past. To look back, softly, and remember. Charcoal black is fire, cold and crushed. Made from carbonized wood, it is the most ancient of blacks, the black of cave drawings, of ashes left behind after warmth. It is a soft black, velvety and pure, used for sketches, shadows, and beginnings. Charcoal black does not gleam, it absorbs light, like a secret. It is the black of preparation, the underdrawing, the outline, the thought before the color. It smudges easily, like memory, like time. A pigment for starting things. And for letting them drift quietly away. Lamp black is the soot of flame, gathered carefully from burning oil lamps. It has been used for thousands of years, from ancient scrolls to modern inks. Dense, soft, infinite, it is the black of shadows that linger behind thoughts. Lamp black is the color of smoke that forgot to disappear. Of whispered ink lines on delicate paper. Unlike other blacks, it is not cold, it is warm, velvety, and slow. The kind of black you don't notice at first, because it isn't shouting. It's waiting. A black that settles in, like dusk, and stays. Graphite gray is thought, turned into line. It is the soft sheen of pencil on paper, the beginning of sketches, the draft of a dream. Made from mineral carbon, graphite has been used for centuries to capture ideas that might, or might not, become reality. It is a color of potential, of things in progress. Always waiting, never finished. Graphite gray is not the gray of rain or stone, it is the gray of marks left behind by the hand. A quiet, silvery path from mind to page. A color that starts things, but never insists on ending them. Celadonite is green, but softly so. A mineral pigment used since Roman times, it painted frescoes with the calmness of pale moss and cool stone. Celadonite is not emerald or jade, it is the green of shadows beneath leaves, of water touched by sky. It hums quietly in ancient walls, still present after centuries. Gentle, subtle, restful. This is not the green of growth or loud nature. It is the green of stillness, of old statues, of dusty light falling on faded paint. A pigment that asks for nothing, except to be seen softly, and then forgotten. Bice is a melancholic blue-green, balanced perfectly between seafoam and shadow. It was once prized in manuscripts and frescoes, cooler than emerald but warmer than cobalt. Bice is the color of deep lakes beneath overcast skies, of old curtains and empty castles. A noble hue, but one that never demands attention. It lingers quietly at the edges of art, adding depth, adding mood. Some say it is the color of sadness softened by time. A pigment for those who love both green and blue. But love them most when they whisper, not when they sing. Woad blue is Europe's answer to indigo. Extracted from the woad plant, it dyed ancient banners, Celtic tattoos, and medieval cloth. Woad has a smell, earthy, bitter, unforgettable, but once the dye sets, it leaves behind a rich, soft blue. The kind of blue that carries history in its fibers. It is the blue of old wars and older rituals. Of textiles buried and rediscovered. Woad blue is not glamorous, but it is loyal. A color that stays, that weathers time, that wraps itself around memory and holds on. It is not just a pigment, it is a quiet inheritance. Pink color is a mystery, a whisper of a shade that barely exists anymore. Once used in decorative painting, it was soft, ephemeral, and almost forgotten. A pale blush, like the last light of dusk on old plaster walls. Pink color isn't just a color, it's a mood, a fading moment. It lingers at the edge of memory, somewhere between rose and ivory. A pigment for beauty that wasn't meant to last. Today, we don't know exactly how it looked. We only know how it felt, gentle, warm, and quietly lost to time. The color of a sigh. Rose madder is the pink of powdered cheeks, of faded silk gowns resting in cedar chests. It is made from the madder root, like madder lake, but lighter, rosier, softer, more tender. It is a color that smiles without showing teeth. In watercolors, it glows gently; in oils, it shimmers like memory. Rose madder is not permanent. It fades with time, slipping into softness, like flowers pressed between the pages of a diary. But that's part of its charm. It is the color of things that were never meant to last forever, but are all the more precious for it. Cobalt violet is a cool, delicate purple that prefers to whisper rather than shout. Created synthetically in the 19th century, it has low covering power but infinite grace. Painters use it in glazes, letting it shimmer quietly through layers of color. It is not the violet of fireworks or drama, it is the violet of twilight shadows, of petals fading in moonlight. Cobalt violet is soft, refined, and a little aloof. A pigment that holds space for silence. For breath. For the subtle beauty of colors that don't need to dominate to be remembered. Baryta white is smooth brightness in powdered form. Made from barium sulfate, it is not the white of snow or ice, but the white of polished paper in gentle gleams. In photographic printing, Baryta white was the secret behind luminous, soft highlights, the hush before a picture appears. In watercolor, it adds subtle glow without shouting. It is a quiet white. A white that stays in the background, holding space for other colors to shine. Baryta white is not dramatic. It is dependable. Like a soft breath at the beginning of something lovely. Or perhaps, at the end. Zinc white is the white of clouds, not of blizzards, but of veils. It is softer and cooler than lead white, more transparent than titanium. It drifts gently over canvases, adding mist, adding hush, adding silence. Used in oils and watercolors, zinc white allows other colors to breathe beneath it, like sunlight through fog. It is a pigment for subtlety. For patience. For layers that do not mind being seen through. Zinc white is the color of memory softening at the edges. Of words whispered through sheer curtains. A white that never insists. It just quietly exists. Red ochre is earth turned flame. It is one of the oldest pigments humans have ever used, drawn from iron-rich soil, crushed and mixed into paint. The first cave paintings wore this color, as did warriors, as did ancient cloth. Red ochre is not a bright red. It is the red of rust, of clay, of the ground beneath our feet after rain. It is steady. Grounded. Ancient. A color that has seen everything and stayed the same. It does not fade quickly. It does not change much. And that is, somehow, very comforting. Yellow ochre is the color of sun-warmed dust. Like red ochre, it has been with humanity since the very beginning, painted on stone, on skin, on early maps of the world. It is a mellow yellow, rich with iron oxide, grounded in the earth. Yellow ochre is not the yellow of lemons or bright gold. It is softer. The yellow of fields in late summer, of parchment, of continuity. Artists have never stopped using it. Because sometimes, you don't want brightness. You want calm. And yellow ochre is calm, bottled and brushed into being. Caput mortuum means dead head in Latin. A solemn, dry purple-brown made from iron oxide, used by alchemists and painters alike. It is the color of mystery, of old blood turned to dust, of faded robes, of twilight shadows on stone. Caput mortuum is not dramatic. It is contemplative. It lingers in the margins of paintings, adding depth without asking for attention. A pigment for those who like their reds muted, their purples grounded, and their symbolism rich. The color of endings, but also of wisdom. Of decay that teaches us things, if we listen softly enough. Cobalt green is a minty whisper in the world of pigments. Created synthetically, it is stable and serene, a gentle green that prefers to think rather than shout. It is not the green of spring or the emerald of jewels. It is the green of garden shadows, of soft moss on stone. Artists have used it when they wanted coolness, calmness, and a sense of intellectual distance. Cobalt green is the color of leafy notes in classical paintings, of backgrounds that never overpower. A thoughtful pigment. For thoughtful hands. Let us drift now into sand. Titanium buff is a soft beige, a sandy off-white with warmth folded into its quiet hue. It is made by mixing titanium dioxide with small amounts of iron oxide, creating a color that rests gently between cream and taupe. Titanium buff is the color of driftwood, of linen, of pages that have aged gracefully. It warms cold palettes. It softens harsh contrasts. It does not seek the spotlight, but it makes other colors feel comfortable. It is not exciting, and that is exactly why it belongs here. A restful beige. For modern souls. Let us breathe into yellow. Cobalt yellow is rare, a lemony pigment made from cobalt and potassium. It is light, delicate, and quietly cheerful. Once used by painters who needed a soft, clear yellow, it has now mostly retired from modern palettes. But in its time, it was the sunshine on a canvas. The pale gold of morning light. A pigment that whispered brightness rather than shouting it. Cobalt yellow is gentle. It is a sunbeam caught in a bottle. Today, safer yellows have replaced it, but the memory of this soft, precise yellow remains. Waiting, in old paintings, to be noticed once more. Mars black is a modern, practical black made from synthetic iron oxide. It is deep, strong, and slow drying. Unlike lamp black or charcoal, Mars black does not come from soot or fire, it comes from careful chemistry. It is a dignified black, stable and reliable. A black for when you need darkness that does not fade, that does not shift. Painters appreciate Mars black because it stays put. It dries with a soft, matte finish. It is not flashy. It is dependable. A working black. The color of inkwells that never spill, of shadows that know their place. Mars violet is a grounded dream. An earthy, synthetic purple that hums softly between red and brown. It was created to offer painters a stable alternative to older, more delicate purples. Mars violet is not theatrical. It is not regal. It is the color of dried petals, of old books, of shadows under clay pots. It belongs in landscapes, in skin tones, in the quiet parts of a painting where mood matters more than hue. It is a purple that has chosen to be humble. To stay close to the ground. And perhaps, that is where it belongs. Mars orange is rust captured in pigment. Made from synthetic iron oxide, it is the red-orange of sunbaked clay, of autumn leaves that have begun to curl. It is warmer than brick, softer than fire, and steadier than both. Artists use Mars orange when they want a color that feels natural but controlled, a color of earth, but one that will not change or fade. It is a color of warmth left behind after the sun sets. Of embers that no longer burn, but still glow. A quiet orange. For moments that do not need to hurry. Mars yellow is the laboratory's answer to yellow ochre. Rich, clean, and synthetic, it is a modern ochre replacement, stronger and brighter but just as mellow. It is the yellow of gold seen through dust. A fields ready for harvest. Mars yellow does not carry the impurities of natural pigments, but it keeps their warmth. It is a color of stability. Of art supplies lined neatly in drawers, waiting to be used. Mars yellow is the color of careful innovation. Of new things made to feel old. A golden hue in a tidy lab coat. Cobalt turquoise is a breath of Mediterranean air in powdered form. It is a fresh, breezy blue-green, stable, sparkling, and just a little bit extravagant. Made from cobalt, it does not fade like azurite or verdigris. It holds its color, bright and steady, like sunlit waves. Artists use it for skies, for seafoam, for windows open to summer. It is not subtle. But it is still soft. The color of daydreams about coastal villages. About cool water touching warm stone. A turquoise that asks you to pause. And sigh. Because sometimes, color can be a vacation. Chrome yellow is dangerously bright. Once beloved by impressionists, it was made from lead chromate, a glowing, buttery yellow that sang of sunlight and fields. But it was also toxic. Wallpaper colored with chrome yellow sometimes poisoned people slowly. Cakes iced with it. Occasionally killed. Yet the color itself remains innocent. The yellow of happy paintings, of golden afternoons. Today, safer versions exist, but the history lingers. Chrome yellow is a color of joy, tied softly to warnings. A lesson in beauty and risk. It reminds us, sometimes, the brightest things carry the quietest dangers. Van Dyke brown is the color of warm shadows. It is made from peat or lignite, earthy, organic substances compressed by time. Painters have used it for centuries to add depth, to suggest old wood, to paint shadows that do not threaten. It is the brown of tobacco leaves drying in barns. Of leather-bound books asleep on dusty shelves. Van Dyke brown is a gentle, transparent brown. It layers softly. It waits patiently. It is not the brown of dirt, but the brown of memory. The brown of quiet things left undisturbed. Let us drift now into crimson. Lac dye is the red of lacquered temples and whispered rituals. It comes from the lac insect, much like kermes and carmine, but deeper, softer, closer to crimson's gentle side. Used for fabrics and manuscripts, lac dye stains silk and parchment alike with a richness that hums instead of shouts. It is a red for quiet ceremonies. For monks brushing color onto sacred pages by candlelight. Lac dye is a secretive pigment, one that clings to history's edges. It fades with time, but the memory of it remains. Let us move softly into green. Nicosia green is an earthy, contemplative green. It was used in frescoes, where walls breathe softly through color. This green is not the green of leaves. It is not the green of emeralds. It is the green of olive grove seen through dust. Of grass at the end of summer, fading gently into memory. Nicosia green is made from ground minerals, chalky and dry, perfect for layering into ancient walls and soft backgrounds. It asks for nothing. It waits. It is a green for shadows, for stillness, for moments in between other moments. Let us glide now into reeds. Reed green is the pale, dry green of plants along quiet waters. It is a color borrowed from nature, but softened. Found in traditional Japanese prints and nature sketches, reed green is not a showy pigment. It is subtle. The green of paper fans and bamboo in shadow. The green of a painter's brush held gently at the wrist, not pressed hard. Reed green does not demand attention, it whispers. It suggests. It lets other colors rest beside it, without competition. It is a pigment for peace. For art that hums, but never sings too loud. Turmeric yellow is the color of spice cabinets opened slowly. A bright botanical pigment, once used in dyes and paints, it is cheerful but fleeting. In sunlight, it fades. In shadow, it glows. It is not stable, but that is part of its charm. Turmeric yellow is the color of fresh curry, of cloths drying on warm lines, of yellow robes worn in meditation. It carries a hint of impermanence, reminding us that color, like time, does not always stay. But while it's here, it shines. Let us drift into lavender. Cudbear is a faded lavender purple, made from lichen processed with ammonia. It is not the purple of kings. It is the purple of whispers. Once used in historical dyes, cudbear tinted cloth and parchment with softness. It does not glow. It does not command. It simply rests, like twilight mist on hillsides. The name itself, cudbear, is gentle, almost affectionate. A pigment for those who appreciate subtle things. A color of old recipes and secret formulas. It fades, but slowly. It lingers, but quietly. Let us move softly into white. Antimony white is an old-fashioned white. A soft, warm pigment once used in cosmetics and medieval paints. It carries with it a hint of magic, and a touch of danger. Slightly toxic, slightly ethereal, antimony white is the color of powder before mirrors. Of ceramic glazes that reflect flickering candlelight. It was used carefully, respectfully, knowing that too much could be harmful. But in small amounts, it brought light to paintings and faces alike. A white with history. A white with whispers. Let us drift now into lead. Lead white was once called the master's white. Brilliant. Durable. And dangerous. Artists loved it because it covered well, blended beautifully, and never turned yellow with time. But it was also toxic, slowly, quietly harmful to those who breathed its dust. Still, painters used it for centuries. On icons, on portraits, on skies that needed soft clouds. Lead white is the white of Renaissance ceilings, of classical paintings, of hands that learned the risks and chose beauty anyway. Today, it has mostly retired. But in old paintings, it still glows. patiently, softly. Let us exhale into oil. Poppy oil is not exactly a pigment, but it is a color in its own gentle way. It is pale, almost colorless, but with a dreamy, semi-transparent gleam. Poppy oil is used as a binder in oil painting. It slows drying. It softens blends. It leaves a whispery sheen on the canvas. Unlike linseed oil, it does not yellow with age. Poppy oil is for painters who want patience, who like to take their time, letting pigments float in slow, sleepy layers. It is the oil of quiet hands and unhurried thoughts. A tender medium for soft beginnings. Bitumen is darkness with weight. A sticky, tar-like brown-black, once used in glazes to deepen shadows. But bitumen carries secrets. It darkens with time, sometimes too much, like a secret that grows heavier. It was once beloved for the rich warmth it brought to paintings, but it could also cause cracking and fading. A color that changes long after the brush has left the canvas. Bitumen is the pigment of nightfall on old oils, of roads, of heavy things that melt in heat. It lingers. It seeps. And sometimes, it surprises. Let us float now into orange-red. Red lead is bright and bold, sometimes called minium. It is a brilliant orange-red, glowing like fire trapped in powder. In medieval manuscripts, red lead gilded the margins with warmth. It was also used in early oil painting, adding a blush to icons and a soft heart to sacred robes. But like many lead-based pigments, it comes with caution. Too much exposure was dangerous. Yet painters embraced it anyway, for its brightness, for its courage. Red lead is the color of warmth wrapped in risk. Of flames caught on vellum. Let us drift into milk white. Tin white is a gentle, antique white made from tin oxide. Before the discovery of safer whites, it was one of the painter's softest choices. Used in Majolica glazes and early European paintings, tin white is milky and calm. It does not shout like titanium white. It rests, like a porcelain cup waiting in the morning light. It softens edges. It holds space. In ceramics, it creates a smooth surface for decoration. In painting, it adds a hush to color. A pigment of patience, of muted elegance. Let us wander now into mineral ghost stories. Plumbonacrid is not just rare, it is a ghost of pigment history. A soft, warm lead carbonate that sometimes appears in the layers of old paintings when lead white transforms over centuries. It was never meant to be the star of the palette. It forms quietly, over time, in the hidden depths of paint. Conservators find it in cross-sections of ancient art, where chemistry and patience meet. Plum bonacrid is the color of faded intentions, of pigments rearranged by air and silence. It is a mineral whisper. A pale, pinkish white that speaks softly of the passage of time. Let us drift into green danger. Emerald green is a brilliant, almost glowing green, a copper acetoarsenide that once graced wallpaper, gowns, and even candy. But beauty sometimes comes with sharp edges. Emerald green was toxic. It caused illnesses, and in some cases, death. Yet people adored it. It was the green of artificial perfection. Of fairy tale forests and painted gardens. Of poison hidden beneath beauty. Today, we know better, but history remembers its shimmer. It is the green of paradox. The green of warning and wonder, side by side. Let us move gently into arsenic brightness. Shayla's green came before emerald green. It is another arsenic-based pigment, a bright, cheerful green that once decorated everything from ball gowns to pastries. Yes, pastries. Until people noticed that the color made them ill. Shayla's green is the green of historical mistakes. The green of invention that outran caution. But for a moment, it was everywhere. In wallpaper. In dresses. In the pages of books. And then, slowly, it faded from fashion, leaving behind stories whispered in chemistry books. A green of beauty. And of lessons learned slowly. Let us wander now into the first synthetic purple. Aniline purple, also known as movine, is the first synthetic dye. Discovered by accident in 1856, it stained the Victorian era with sudden color. Before aniline purple, purples were expensive and rare, reserved for royalty. But movine changed that. Suddenly, lilac and lavender appeared in fashion, in wallpaper, in flowers that bloomed in artificial fabric. It was invention wrapped in softness. The color of modern chemistry, wrapped in Victorian lace. It faded easily, but while it lasted, it transformed how people saw color. A purple born in a lab, then drifting gently into history. Fustic is the color of warm yellow-brown, extracted from tropical wood. It is not a famous pigment, but it has quietly dyed fabric for centuries. Fustic is the color of old parchment, of smoke-stained paper, of autumn leaves pressed into books. It is a humble dye, used for military uniforms, for robes, for the backs of tapestries no one looks at, but still, it matters. It has a soft persistence. A wood-based whisper. The color of things that last quietly, without notice. Let us drift into red-pink wood. Brazil wood gives a glowing red-pink, extracted from the heart of trees. It is the color of violin bows, of manuscripts tinted gently with blush. It was once traded across oceans, giving its name to an entire country, Brazil. But Brazil wood's pigment is not permanent. It fades in sunlight. It dims with time. Yet while it lasts, It is the color of a warm, woody blush. A red that leans toward pink, but holds on to earthiness. A color of old instruments and whispered symphonies. Let us drift now into royal salt. Tyrian purple is made from sea snails, millions of them, crushed to produce a single ounce of dye. In ancient times, it was the color of emperors, of robes that smelled faintly of the sea. Tyrian purple is not a bright purple. It is dark, serious, and slightly brownish, a purple of dignity, not decoration. The labor to create it was immense. The pigment was so rare that only the highest rulers could afford it. It is the color of salt and sovereignty, of oceans and crowns. Let us move softly now into trees and ink. Logwood is a pigment of purples and blacks, extracted from a tree once used for both dyes and ink. It is the color of revolution and of quiet writing. Used in inkpots, in textiles, in watercolor shadows. Logwood starts as a deep purple, but can shift to blue or gray depending on how it is treated. It is a flexible color. A color of change. Of letters written by hand. Of cloth stained for ceremonies or for battle. A tree's heart turned into pigment. Let us float into synthetic sky. Saxon blue is synthetic indigo, created in the 18th century, a modern shortcut to an ancient color. Brighter and quicker than traditional indigo, but less stable. Saxon blue was the flash of industrial invention, the shimmer of new chemistry. It dyed textiles rapidly, but with a price, it fades faster than natural indigo. It is the blue of sudden modernity. A factory dye vats and quick cloth. A color that appears quickly, and sometimes disappears just as fast. Let us wander softly now into stone. Verd antique is not a pigment, but a stone, a green marble streaked with white. It was prized in ancient architecture, in altars, in sculptures. But the stone inspired paints, fresco pigments, and furniture stains that tried to copy its veined beauty. Verd antique is the green of myth and memory. The green of polished stone warmed by centuries of touch. It is the color of cathedrals and mosaics, of columns that hold history on their shoulders. A stone so soft in color, but so hard in time. Let us drift now into terracotta. Persian red is a warm, terracotta-like red made from iron oxides. It is a deep, noble color, the red of ancient manuscripts, of clay walls, of painted ceramics resting in museums. Persian red does not shine brightly. It glows softly. It holds the warmth of earth, baked slowly by sun. It is a red that hums, not shouts. A red that remembers history rather than rewriting it. The red of aged pottery, of handprints on cave walls, of civilizations layered one upon the other. Let us glide now into modern blush. Spinel pink is a modern pigment, a synthetic pink with remarkable light fastness. It does not fade like Brazil wood or cochineal. It stays. A blush with backbone. Used in cosmetics and art, spinel pink is soft but dependable. It is the pink of powdered silk with the staying power of stone. The color of cheeks brushed with gentle color, of roses preserved perfectly in pigment form. It is modern chemistry's answer to fragility. A pink that refuses to disappear. Let us move softly into yellow sunlight in a bottle. Benzimidazerne yellow is a modern pigment, a high-performance creation of chemistry. It is transparent, luminous, and light-fast. A sunbeam in a bottle, but without the risks of older yellows. Unlike gamboge or orpiment, it does not fade, nor does it poison. It simply exists, bright and steady, like a summer morning caught in pigment form. Artists love it because it behaves kindly, it does not overtake a palette, but it holds its place. It is the yellow of soft certainty. The yellow of progress, of gentle innovation. Let us drift now into coastal breeze. Cobalt teal is a turquoise-touched blue-green. Made from cobalt, it is both stable and expensive, a color with dignity. It is the sigh of the Mediterranean Sea, bottled for painting. A color you might dream about more often than you see in real life. Cobalt teal is the blue-green of cloudless days, of gentle waves lapping softly at ancient stone. It is cool, but never cold. Bright, but never brash. A quiet luxury, like a breeze that carries memory. Let us float softly into underwater blue. Manganese blue is sheer and bright, a color beloved by watercolorists. It carries clarity, like water over smooth pebbles. Created in the 20th century, it was a gentle revelation, a blue that is both vibrant and delicate, like glass reflecting sky. Manganese blue is not as common now, but it lingers in the brushes of those who paint with patience. It is the color of poolside reflections, of cold air caught in paint. A blue that does not weigh down, but lifts up. Let us wander now into glowing pink. Quinacridone rose is a luminous, synthetic pink, deeper than a blush, but lighter than crimson. It glows, even in shadow. Used in lipstick, in fabric, in landscapes at sunset. It is a pink that does not apologize for existing. Quinacridone pigments are known for their stability, but this one is also gentle, whispering warmth onto the canvas. It is the rose of twilight, of petals at dusk, of memories seen through closed eyelids. A color for both modern paints and ancient feelings. Let us drift now into soft orange. Benzimidazerne orange is another modern marvel. Clean, light-fast, dependable. It is the orange of sunlight behind your eyelids, when you close them and look toward the sky. A gentle orange, not too red, not too yellow. It rests perfectly between warmth and calm. It does not stain harshly, nor does it fade easily. It is an orange of comfort, of steady illumination. Like a lamp left on in another room, softly glowing through the door. Let us continue slowly into earth and iron. Hematite red is made from iron oxide, the dust of stones, turned to color. It is dusty, ancient, and grounded. The red of earth baked by sun, the red of cliffs and caves. It is not a bright red, but a soft one, like dried clay in your palm. Hematite red is the color of history beneath your feet. Of footsteps left in ancient soil. It is a pigment that has existed since humanity first picked up stone to mark meaning. Let us move now into green made vivid. Cadmium green is not found in nature, it is a mixture of cadmium yellow and phthalo green. Vivid, opaque, and cultivated. It is the green of painted leaves, not real ones. A green perfected for brush and canvas. It is used where certainty is required, botanical illustrations, sharp outlines of foliage, structured gardens and oil paint. It does not fade. It does not doubt itself. Cadmium green is a color of confidence, of cultivated landscapes and controlled light. Let us float gently into soft sky. Cobalt cerulean is a sky blue with dignity. Made from cobalt stannate, it is soft, opaque, and steady. The blue of fair weather, of clear horizons. Cerulean is the color of mornings that begin quietly, without rush. A blue that does not overwhelm but invites calm. Painters use it to soften shadows, to lighten skies, to make clouds feel at home. Cobalt cerulean is the hush of blue, not the shout. It is the blue of breathing deeply. Let us drift. Indanthrone blue is deep, velvety, and serious. A synthetic indigo that refuses to fade. It is the blue of old ink, of moonless nights, of velvet curtains closed against the world. Unlike natural indigo, indanthrone blue is stable. Permanent. A color that settles into shadows and stays there. It is the blue of midnight thoughts. Of letters never sent. Of paintings that invite you to pause, just a little longer. Let us wander now into wine red velvet. Perylene maroon is a dark, wine red pigment, moody, transparent, and soft. It layers like velvet shadows, building richness without heaviness. It is the color of aged leather, of red wine seen through candlelight, of curtains drawn across quiet stages. Perylene maroon does not demand attention. It lingers at the edges, making other colors deeper by its presence. It is the red of restraint, of whispers, of careful glazes that deepen slowly. Let us move softly into the sky again. Cobalt blue is the classic true blue. Bright, stable, and royal. It has been the color of porcelain, of painter's skies, of clean breezes locked in pigment form. Unlike azurite or smalt, it does not fade. It simply stays blue. Cobalt blue is the color of trust in painting, a blue that knows its role and plays it perfectly. It has colored ceramics, ceilings, canvases, and cloisters for centuries. The sky in pigment form. Let us drift now into writing ink. Iron gall ink is not a pigment but a stain. It was the writing ink of medieval manuscripts, of treaties, of letters lost in time. Made from tannins and iron, it darkens slowly on paper, fading sometimes to warm brown, but never disappearing entirely. It is the ink of time passing. The color of thought committed to parchment. the whispers of scribes, now trapped between pages. A color of memory, written down softly. Let us float into white beginnings. Chalk white is crushed calcium carbonate. Simple. Pure. Used in fresco and tempera, it is a primer and a whisper. A base for other colors, but also a color itself, the hush before painting begins. Chalk white is the color of walls before murals, of pages before ink, of silence before words. It is the softest white. The white of beginnings. The white that asks nothing of you but to breathe. Let us drift gently into sunset red. Cadmium scarlet is a warm, fiery red. Opaque and commanding. It is a sunset locked in powder, a flame made stable. Painters love it because it does not change, it stays red, forever. Cadmium scarlet is the color of bold gestures in oil paint, of autumn leaves turned to brushstrokes, of lips in portraits. It is a red of strength, but not of aggression. It is steady fire, not flashing sparks. Let us move softly now into gentle clouds. Lithopone white is a soft blend of zinc sulfide and barium sulfate. Created in the early 20th century, it is a neutral, gentle white used in early paints. Not as bright as titanium white, not as dangerous as lead white. It is the white of compromise. The white of calm. Lithopone white is like a gentle cloud, soft, even, and never overwhelming. It sits quietly in the palette, ready to lighten, to soften, to mute other colors just enough. Let us rest here, in the quiet between hues. Cinnabar is not in a hurry. It never was. This vermilion treasure, made from mercury sulfide, once adorned emperors and scrolls, but that's not why we care. We care because cinnabar is the red of old seals pressed into wax, the color of tradition slowly simmering over centuries. Mined carefully from the earth, or sometimes synthesized with just as much love, cinnabar's brilliance isn't loud, it's ceremonial. It glows, yes, but with the sort of glow that has bowed its head in temples and whispered secrets in scroll margins. Toxic, yes, but also tender. It reminds us that even danger, when old enough, becomes part of the lullaby of time. Let us tiptoe further into its rust-red hush. Paris green is a troublemaker with a lullaby's voice. It's the green of absinthe daydreams and faded wallpaper in forgotten salons. Made with copper acetoarsenite, yes, that's a mouthful, this pigment was both adored and feared. It dressed the gowns of the daring and lined the pages of poisoned love letters. But when we look closely, it's not wicked. It's wistful. A bright, blue-tinged green that longed for gardens and instead found itself in arsenic. It flaked, it faded, it sometimes killed. But its memory? Oh, that lingers like perfume on lace. And as we drift into this color's sleepy poison, we remember, beauty is never just one thing. Vine black is the charcoal whisper of what once grew. Made from burned grapevines, this is a pigment of patient transformation, life to ash, color to silence. Artists loved it for its softness, its blendability, its refusal to scream. It's the black that doesn't judge, it simply accompanies. Found in the sketches beneath paintings, in the shadows before the light, vine black is always the beginning of something, never the end. It smudges like memory. It crumbles like old plans. And yet, it always returns, ready to darken gently, never forcefully. Let us rest beside its muted warmth. Armenian red ochre is the quiet rust of ancient stones. Dug from the heart of the Caucasus and ground with care, it's not here to dazzle, it's here to stay. This isn't the red of passion, it's the red of pottery, of dust on pilgrim roads, of suns setting slowly over dry hills. It's iron oxide at its most meditative. A claiborne blush that speaks of earth, of age, of waiting. Used since prehistory, it never changed, because it never needed to. A color so certain of itself, it sleeps standing up. Let us rest in its permanence a while. Bavarian blue isn't as famous as Prussian blue, but it's not jealous. It's content to swirl gently through decorative plates and tiled stoves. This blue is a soft companion to winter skies, cool, distant, but oddly comforting. Once a staple in ceramic glazes and painted faience, Bavarian blue is the blue of snow shadows and whispered hymns. It never asks to be center stage. It prefers edges, borders, little flourishes of frozen calm. And like most blues, it doesn't shout. It sings. Just beneath the surface, in a register meant for dreams. With the gentlest sigh and the slowest blink, we drift onward. Into the next pigment of our sloth-paced palette. Settle in, dear dreamer. Terre d'ombre naturelle, or raw umber if you'd rather whisper it plainly, is the pigment of weathered wood and soil after rain. It is not new. It is not young. This earth-brown tone is made from iron oxide and manganese, dug from ancient beds and ground into quiet. Used in shadows and underpainting since the Renaissance, raw umber is not here to impress, it's here to anchor. The color of forgotten barns, of clay pots warmed by sun, of old libraries that smell like dust and wisdom. It doesn't try to be pretty. And that is what makes it beautiful. Cobalt blue is dignified without being dramatic. Derived from cobalt salts and alumina, it's a pigment that arrived in the 19th century already feeling old. Artists love it for its stability, but we love it for its restraint. This is not the sea at noon. It's the sky just before twilight, when everything begins to cool. Cobalt blue is the color of deep breath, of porcelain dreams, of blue that has nothing to prove. It doesn't fade. It doesn't flinch. It just exists. Like a long exhale on a cool day. Malachite green is not to be confused with actual malachite. This version, synthetic, curious, and a little outdated, is the ghost of early printing presses and laboratory glass. It hums in a very specific hue of green, slightly acidic, a little mischievous, like green tea that sat too long. Once used in inks and textiles, it slowly fell out of favor, but not before leaving its strange glow on a few forgotten pages. It's the color of caution, but also of curiosity. And in that soft contradiction, we find our lullaby. Rose quartz pink isn't quite a pigment, it's a feeling with a hint of geology. Inspired by the gentle blush of its namesake mineral, this shade is the color of quiet affection. Soft, milky, and always slightly translucent, it doesn't announce itself. It lingers. Rose quartz pink belongs in silk ribbons, old stationery, and grandmother's powder box. It isn't vivid. It's tender. And in the dreamy language of color, it means, you are safe now. Let it wrap around your thoughts like a slow lullaby in a cotton scarf. Barite white, or blanc fixe, if we're feeling poetic, is a pigment of support. Made from barium sulfate, it's not flashy. It's filler. A body color. A base. But oh, how sweetly it does its job. It gives opacity without attitude. It adds bulk without complaint. It's the wallflower of the paint world, standing in the background, holding everything up. It's the white that doesn't judge, the white that quietly says, go ahead, you shine, I'll be here. And in that humility, there is peace. Litharge is not a color that sings, it hums, low and heavy, like iron chains underwater. A lead-based oxide with a warm, orange hue, it's the pigment of alchemy and ancient smelting pots. It came from fire, you see, from the refining of silver, from the quiet bloom of lead turning to ash. In medieval times, it glowed in stained glass windows. Now, it mostly slumbers. Its warmth is not radiant, but residual. A color born of industry, now retired, wrapped in the memory of glowing crucibles and soft, sooty air. Litharge doesn't sparkle. It lingers. Smalt is the sound of blue in a cathedral, echoed, powdered, and aged. Made from ground cobalt glass, it once shimmered in the robes of kings and saints. But time is unkind to smalt. Its vivid blue turns gray, like a secret forgotten. And yet, artists still love it for its texture, its history, its willingness to disappear gracefully. This is not a blue for permanence. This is a blue for the fleeting. For the whisper between prayers. For a sky you saw once in a dream but could never find again. Rosso Antico, or ancient red, is not just a pigment, it's a time traveler in powdered form. This warm, iron-rich red is the color of Roman villas, of crumbling bricks kissed by centuries. It was ground from hematite and used in sculpture and paint, always with quiet authority. Not as bold as vermilion, not as soft as sienna, just old, and sure of itself. Rosso Antico is the sigh of stone in summer heat, the rust of forgotten tools, the blush of age. It tells no stories. And in doing so, tells them all. Gamboge is yellow, yes, but not the kind that shouts. Extracted from the resin of Southeast Asian trees, it flows like honey and dries like golden dust. Used in watercolors, in Buddhist scrolls, in medicines and mischief. It's a warm, translucent glow, like morning light behind paper walls. But be warned, Gamboge's fickle. It can fade, it can stain, it can vanish like a thought mid-sentence. Still, for a moment, it glows. And in that glow, there is something sacred. And sleepy. Ivory black is the color of embers after midnight. Made by charring ivory, once, long ago, it carries with it the quiet of loss and luxury. Later, it came from animal bones, yet it kept the name. It is not as harsh as lamp black. It is not as clean as Mars black. It is the black of soft shadow, of velvet gloves, of ink that never dries. This is the pigment of elegies and deep wells. It does not absorb light, it absorbs time. Realgar is the color of warning. Whispered, not shouted. A deep, orange-red arsenic sulfide once used in alchemical diagrams and fireworks, Realgar glows like embers beneath the earth. It's beautiful, and a little dangerous, like a story told too close to a candle. In paintings, it was both flame and forbidden fruit. But Realgar ages poorly, it crumbles into yellow dust, into Realgar. It's a pigment that forgets itself. Still, for a moment, it shines like a secret too bright to keep. Orpiment is golden and glossy, like sunlight trapped in amber. Another arsenic-based pigment, it shimmered in manuscripts and mosaics, even as it warned with its poison. Alchemists believed it could turn lead to gold. It never did, of course, but that didn't stop the dreaming. Orpiment is soft, like butter left in sunlight. It flakes, it fades, it sulks. But when it gleams with the golden hush of forgotten divinity. A color that once thought it was sacred. Terra Rosa is the color of earth with a secret. Warmer than red ochre, quieter than vermilion. This iron-rich pigment has been pressed into bricks, frescoes, and dusty paths for centuries. It's not a red that boasts, it remembers. The color of pottery shards and long-lost sandals. Of Roman rooftops seen from a distance, under a pale blue sky. Terra Rosa doesn't want to impress you. It just wants to be here, forever muted, forever grounded. Malachite green is not shy, but it is crumbling. Made from the mineral malachite, this pigment is a powdery green dream, once worn by queens and scribes. It flakes easily. It can poison paper. And still, artists chose it. For its richness. For its promise. A green that speaks of gardens that never were, of palaces imagined through lattice windows. It doesn't last. But while it lives, it gleams like memory polished by moonlight. Carbon black is older than history. It's the soot from flames, the ash from candles, the residue of breath and burning. Used in cave paintings, in ink, in tire rubber. It is everywhere, and yet, you've never really seen it. Because carbon black isn't a color, it's a subtraction. A hush. A stop. The silence that waits after the last note of a lullaby. It does not shine. It listens. Caput mortuum, or deadhead, is not as grim as it sounds. This reddish-brown pigment once came from iron oxide, and maybe a little alchemy. It was used in religious art, in robes and shadows and sorrow. Some say it's the color of dried blood. But others say it's the color of old wisdom. Of rusted keys. Of quiet corners in medieval libraries. A color with weight, and dust, and stories that no longer wish to be told. Blue verditer is a copper carbonate, a powdery, sky-toned blue created from chemical reactions and careful waiting. It's a gentle cousin to azurite, but far more delicate. Once used in 18th century wallpapers and frescoes, it has a softness that is almost embarrassed to exist. Like a pale robin's egg resting in a drawer. It is not brilliant. But it is kind. Indian yellow is a strange dream of gold. Originally made, it is said, from the urine of cows fed on mango leaves, though no one's quite sure if that tale is true. Regardless, the pigment is rich, warm, glowing. A yellow with belly and breath. Artists used it in glazes to bring sunlight into shadows. It stains. It lingers. It glows like a yawn mid-afternoon. Rose madder comes from the roots of the madder plant. It is the pink of faded curtains, of cheeks in old oil portraits. Its history stretches back to Egyptian tombs, where it slept beside pharaohs. In watercolor, it blooms softly and dries like a sigh. It is not bold. It is not fast. It's the echo of a petal, the ghost of a kiss. Verdigris is what happens when copper dreams. A blue-green patina that forms on coins and statues, then crushed into pigment by hopeful painters. In its prime, it glows like minty lightning. But it fades, corrodes, turns brown in oils. A pigment full of promise. And apology. Still, in frescoes and manuscripts, it sings a little. A soft turquoise hum beneath layers of time. Azurite is the deep, dusty blue of old books and whispered spells. Made from crushed mineral, it was prized for centuries as a more affordable alternative to lapis lazuli. But azurite is fragile. It changes to malachite if it gets too wet. It's a pigment in transition, never quite still, always turning. But while it's blue, oh, it's very blue. The color of wells with no bottom. Sepia is the ink of cuttlefish. Literally. A rich brown dye used in early writing and later in monochrome drawings. It is soft, smoky, and oddly sentimental. Like the color of memories you're not sure are yours. In water, it spreads like fog. In drawings, it stays quiet. Sepia is the past in pigment form. The warmth of forgotten letters. The murmur of an unfinished story. Mars red is a synthetic red oxide, a modern imitation of earthy iron pigments. It is not flashy, but it's dependable. Used in bricks, in grounds, in solid things. It is the red of rust and regulation. Of barns and borders. But also of sunsets through dusty windows. A red that settles in, rather than leaps out. It doesn't want to be famous. It just wants to be permanent. Naples yellow is warm and sleepy. A lead antimonate pigment once used by the old masters, it lies somewhere between custard and candlelight. Its opacity makes it perfect for skies and skin in soft light. But it can be unpredictable. Prone to darkening, to changing. Still, there's something comforting in its buttery hue. A yellow that doesn't need to sparkle. It only needs to stay. Tin white is the quiet sibling of lead white. Less bright, more retiring. Made from tin oxide, it was used in Majolica and some early oil paints. It has a coolness, a slight reluctance. It won't dazzle. But it will support, lighten, soften. A backstage color. A whisper behind bolder pigments. Tin white doesn't try to be remembered. It simply helps others shine. Aniline purple is synthetic, yes, but don't hold that against it. It was one of the first of its kind, born from coal tar in the 19th century. Also known as mauvine, it turned Victorian wardrobes violet, if only briefly. The color itself sits between lilac and lavender, with a hint of melancholy. Aniline purple does not boast. It fades easily, like gossip or lilacs in rain. But in its moment, it is soft thunder on silk. A purple that once believed it would change the world, and then quietly didn't. Sheila's green is beautiful, and a little bit wicked. Invented in the 18th century, it's a copper arsenide that once made wallpaper glow like enchanted gardens. But it also poisoned people. Slowly, invisibly. Still, what a green it was. Bright, acidic, like apple skins in moonlight. A green that wanted to be noticed. And it was. Just. Not for long. Now, it lingers in museum samples and whispered cautionary tales. A color that learned how dangerous it is to want attention. Bitumen is not so much a pigment as a shadow made thick. A tarry black-brown, once used in oil painting for glazes and depth. It came from petroleum, and smelled faintly of something prehistoric. Painters loved it, until it cracked and bled through their work. Bitumen is untrustworthy, but fascinating. The kind of color that slips between the lines, hides in folds, and leaves a trace even when scrubbed away. A sleeping beast beneath the varnish. Fustic is a yellow dye extracted from the wood of a tropical tree. Old fustic, to be precise. It doesn't sound glamorous, and it isn't. But it was useful, especially for tinting fabric in the days before synthetic dyes. Fustic is a warm, woody yellow, the color of worn linen and the underside of dry leaves. It doesn't glow. It doesn't dazzle. But it clings. A humble yellow, content to be background. The color of things that have lasted too long to be exciting anymore. Brazil wood is red, but not in a hurry. A deep, rosy dye extracted from heartwood. It was used in medieval inks, in textiles, in violins. The red it offers is soft, slow to saturate, and sensitive to light. it fades like the ending of a lullaby. Still, Brazilwood was once so important, it gave a country its name. Imagine that, a nation named after a pigment that blushes when you look too closely. A color that mattered more than it ever meant to. Tyrian purple is regal by reputation, but reclusive in practice. Made from thousands of sea snails, it was once worth more than gold. But the process was unpleasant, smelly, tedious. Ancient dyers knew the secret, but kept it close. The purple it produced was deep and solemn, less grape, more dusk at sea. A color for emperors, yes, but also for quiet shadows on marble. Tyrian purple does not shine. It broods, gently. Like a secret too proud to be told. Logwood begins in a tree, ends in a kettle, and lingers in fabric. It can be purple, or red, or nearly black, depending on the water, the mordant, the moment. It was used in inks, those soft, sepia-toned words in old books. Logwood. It was a pirate dye, a poet dye, a smuggled treasure no one noticed. And yet, it was everywhere. The color of ink blots, of antique correspondence, of thoughts halfway erased. A quiet, inky whisper in the fibers of history. Mount Vesuvius red is a volcanic red, not because it erupts, but because it's made from lava earth. A kind of earthy hematite hue, worn by Roman frescoes and Pompeian walls. It's a dry, mineral red, like clay in sunlight. Not loud, but firm. It holds heat, but doesn't burn. A color of ruins and memory. You can almost smell ash in it, feel the crackle beneath your feet. This red does not move quickly. It waits. Saxon blue is early, synthetic, and a little unstable, like a dream half-formed. Created in the 18th century by accident, it's an indigo alternative that didn't quite last. But while it lived, it dyed cloth a sky-touched blue. Slightly greenish, slightly sad. It doesn't bind well to fabric, so it fades. But oh, the way it begins, right as breath on glass, like the sky before storms. Saxon blue was a mistake, but a lovely one. A pigment that believed in itself, even briefly. Verd antique is a color that pretends to be stone. Technically, it's a serpentine marble with veins of white calcite, but let's not rush. In pigment, it's a deep, mossy green, quiet and heavy like temple walls. Not bright. Not lively. But steady. A pigment for silence, for cool corridors, for tomb inscriptions that refuse to fade. It's the green of stillness. Of centuries. Of things that will outlast us. A color that already knows how to wait. Green bice is a quiet cousin of blue bice, made from copper salts and dreams of moss. It was once used by medieval artists who didn't need their greens to sparkle, they just needed them to stay. It's dusty, earthy, and easily overlooked. The green of shadows under ivy. Of damp chapel corners. Not brilliant, not showy. But loyal. The kind of green that lingers long after the painting has crumbled away. A whisper of leaves pressed flat between pages. Armenian red ochre is not a red that shouts. It is a mineral murmur from the mountains, gathered, ground, and sighed into being. Used in manuscripts and egg tempera, it offers a warm, comforting dullness. The red of baked earth. Of worn terracotta. Of footprints left behind on a monastery floor. It never fades because it never truly arrives. Just a presence. Steady. Patient. A pigment that prefers to remain still. Lead tin pink is a soft, slightly milky blush that once bloomed in the delicate folds of Renaissance robes. Made from lead and tin oxides, it's not a healthy pink, but it is a devoted one. It doesn't scream roses or romance. It mumbles rosewater and porcelain. A pink used in flesh tones when the soul was meant to glow through skin. Fragile. Faded. Like the memory of a kiss you didn't know you'd miss. Jarosite yellow is born from oxidized iron and arid silence. Found in Martian soil and medieval manuscripts alike, it's a yellow that doesn't try to impress. Slightly ochre, slightly sulfur, always subdued. The color of parchment that's been left in sunlight, or of dust that's learned to glow. It's what a yellow might become if it forgot how to be bright, and found peace in that forgetting. Maya blue is a wonder of patience. A sacred blue made by binding indigo to clay, yes, clay. It endured jungle heat, damp ruins, even time itself. Found on murals, pottery, and offerings, this pigment was not painted, it was offered. It's the blue of skies remembered from childhood, or the blue of water when you're not really looking. Gentle. Gracious. It holds on long after you've let go. Persian berry lake is made from buckthorn berries, transformed with alum into a fugitive hue. A kind of yellow-pink that wavers between gold and dusk. Used in illuminated manuscripts, it never stayed long, it faded like gossip or candlelight. But while it was there, oh, it warmed every corner. Like a secret laugh. Like apricots at twilight. It's the color of something that almost was. Arsenic green is beautiful in the way danger sometimes is. This vivid green, made from copper acetoarsenite, painted wallpapers, gowns, and lives with a poison brush. It shimmered in Victorian parlors, and sickened their guests. But the pigment itself is unapologetic. Unbothered. A green too perfect for safety. The kind of color that doesn't whisper, it lingers, even after it's gone. A cautionary sigh in powdered form. Indian red is not red like roses or cherries, it is red like rust. Like dried blood or sunbaked earth. A natural iron oxide, it was used in frescoes, floors, and thoughtful pauses. It's a grounded color, low and humming. A pigment that knows how to wait. That stains slowly. That anchors you when you're floating too high. It is not exciting. But oh, it's trustworthy. Madder root dust is the very heart of the madder plant, crushed and steeped until it yields a tender red. Used for centuries, it colored robes, ribbons, and lullabies. It's not flashy. It's not proud. It's the red of dried raspberries and old book spines. A red that doesn't hurry or apologize. It simply stays, like the memory of warmth after the fire's gone out. Vine black is made from charred grapevines. Yes. Burnt wood. This pigment is as soft as ashes and twice as calm. Artists used it for outlines, for underdrawings, for things meant to be there but not seen. It doesn't reflect light. It absorbs it. It hushes the world around it. The black of burnt offerings. Of endings. Of beginnings. A pigment that is, quite simply, silence. And so, dear listener, if you've wandered with me through the faded halls of forgotten palettes, and drifted slowly through the powdery quiet of ochres, whites, and unremarkable greens, then I believe we've shared something quietly wonderful tonight. You may not remember which mineral made ultramarine, or which forgotten beetle once whispered itself into crimson dye. And truly, that is perfectly fine. We were never here to remember. We were here for the lull. The long, lovely hush of pigments no one asked about. But that your thoughts, in their drowsy curiosity, were happy to hold for a little while. Let these colors settle now. Back into their jars and glass vials. Into chalky trays and half-used tubes. Let us close the cabinet gently. And dim the studio lights on this slow, sleepy archive of the ordinary. Because sometimes, the dullest hues are the most comforting dreams. If your eyes are closed, If your thoughts are drifting, then my work is done for today. Thank you for spending this unremarkable moment with me. You have listened to The Sleepy Sloth, where uninteresting things become the softest lullabies.